Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here, John Sneisen, and there is trouble in San Marino, of course in the middle of Italy, but of course it was once a country that people tried to park their money and all that, but the problem is that, of course, you're going to get people saying, well, these problems are caused by the fact that there isn't enough government and regulations and blah, blah, blah. No. This is a problem of government, and you'll see shortly, but let's look into this article from Reuters. And as this Reuters article says, San Marino considers $350 million IMF loan to shore up banks as sources. And as the article goes into, Europe's San Marino is considering asking the International Monetary Fund for a loan of up to 300 million euros or $350 million to shore up its banks, which are crippled by bad debts, two sources said. And as it continues, the nation of 34,000 people landlocked inside Italy has yet to recover from a deep recession caused by the global financial crisis a decade ago, and its banks are swamped with bad debts of 1.7 billion euros, 117% of the former tax haven's 2017 gross domestic product of 1.45 billion euros. Although San Marino is less than 15 kilometers or 9 miles across, it still has 6 banks, a legacy of its days as a discreet place where foreigners, especially Italians, park their savings. San Marino's central bank estimates that 37% of the nation's problem loans are in its worst category of bad debt. In addition to moving towards a loan request to the Washington-based IMF, the Republic is preparing to cut public sector salaries and reform the pension system. And I quote, no formal letter has gone to the IMF, but there has been a dialogue with Washington institutions for more than a year on the need to stabilize the situation, one source said. And I quote, by the end of this year, the request for help should be finalized or the assistance program may even have been activated by then, the source said. A second source confirmed the government was moving towards a formal request, but said nothing had been decided as yet. An IMF spokesman said no formal request for financial assistance has been received from San Marino authorities, but the fund was advising them on how to stabilize the economy. And I quote, fund staff maintains close engagement with the Samarinese authorities, as with other member countries, to advise them on policies to promote stability and growth and support their efforts to strengthen the provision of data in the banking sector, fiscal accounts, and balance of payments, he said. So what really stands out to me about this piece, John, is the fact that they mention, well, they haven't really recovered from 2008, from the financial crisis, which is interesting because, I mean, no countries really have. I mean, for example, the United States never actually recovered. The banks are still insolvent. All that kind of stuff still remains the same today. It's just that they have centralized it. They've propped it up. They've manipulated into temporary prosperity, causing long-term hardships. And we've seen that in countries throughout the world. But when I look at a place like San Marino, you see a place that it should be prosperous. I mean, it should have a lot of great fundamentals there. There should be a lot going on for the small country. But of course, you got this massive banking system, and these banking systems and governments always bring down a country, always bring down the people living within the country, always cause poverty, always cause debt servitude. And when you see all these problems, it's the symptom of these banks out of control, investing in crazy things, their paper derivatives, their entanglement with central banks around the world. What do they expect is going to happen? If we've seen it before a million times, why wouldn't it happen this time? What do you think about this, John?
Well, all I gotta say about San Marino is they have a terrible soccer team that continues to lose in the European trials.
Come on, we're finally getting viewers in San Marino, man.
No, sorry guys. San Marino is an interesting place. Of course, they had their independence for many years.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful place in the middle of Italy, of course. But looking at, for example, their credit rating is not that great. It's almost at the same place as Argentina, not too far away from its triple B minus. So it's under investment grade anymore. And of course, you were saying that the crisis in Europe hasn't really been resolved since 2008. Well, it's totally because most of these countries are still bankrupt. They still can pay their debt. They're getting bailouts left, right, and center. And of course, Greece came out after, the IMF and the banks, their friends, have been looting, any asset that they could find in the economy. And now finally they're, coming out with Cyprus saying, yeah, we're exiting out of this calamity. Meanwhile, they sold their country off to everybody else for a massive rebate. And this is what, the countries are doing, especially the International Monetary Fund going and giving those loans. So that is what I foresee for San Marino, if they're stupid enough to get a loan from the criminal enterprise, which is the International Monetary Fund, which is run underneath the United Nations. So it's just a whole bunch, it's a den of thieves there, as well as the Federal Reserve. And there's no other way that they're going to save this economy than letting the banks fail, go all across Europe, let all those banks fail, because they are insolvent.
Yeah, the sooner the better. And the International Monetary Fund. Let's talk a bit about that, John. Let's talk a bit about what happens to countries when they are forced to bow down to the IMF when they get these loans, because we've seen similar things happen in places like, I don't know, Venezuela and other. What do you think about that?
Well, we did a video. Remember, we did a video on Suriname, and then actually, higher up people started getting back to us and saying, listen, we just took an IMF loan, and all of our political corrupt political elite, just took that money and ran away with it. It's like, oh, surprise. And that is what happens everywhere. The IMF gives loans for, let's say, for some projects in the country. The projects falls through, but the money, of course, got ran away with all these political elites, either if it's, kings or queens in these countries, or just political elite that, are running the countries into ruin by stealing and IMF debt and so on.
But that's what they do best, because, in the end, government is just an organized crime racket that people give some fodder to, just because, well, they're part of our sports team. This one wants less government. This one wants more government. I like these guys. Lesser of two evils, blah, 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 blah. And when it comes down to it, they're all just big organized crime gangs that extort the people to stay alive, that throw people in prison if they don't follow their collective rule. The whole idea of government is crime.
Yeah, and then, of course, the criminal mafia cartel that the IMF is and their bankster buddies comes in. And then as the projects and everything failed and the government, needs the money to pay off the debt, well, so listen, you got some nice gold mines over there. You got some nice diamond mines. You got some beautiful copper mines. Oh, look at that port that you have, or the airport. You could sell that off to us for cheap money, and then we could run it for you. So that's how it works. They come in and they give money to corrupt people, and then of course they run away with the money, and then the country is still needing to pay back that money. Well, then they go and take all their assets. It's like a massive looting that the IMF does, and it's nothing else than a cartel and a mafia that runs around like loan sharks around the world, stealing from everybody that they can get their hands onto. Just trying to find one corrupt politician or one corrupt king or queen in a country, and then giving them the money, and then taking everything for next to nothing, which they're gonna make lots upon lots of money on the IMF banksters and their friends.
Yeah, and then the collectivist sports team supporters, the fans, go out and vote thinking that they're going to change things. If you're on the left, adding to the tumor. If you're on the right, cutting the tumor. But then they cut the tumor and then they leave some of the tumor left. So even with the right, you cut down the size of government, but then you still have a part of a tumor, and that tumor grows. So no matter what, it'll continue to grow. And that's what government, it's organized crime, it's cancer, and governments and banks work hand in hand because they both benefit greatly from your debt. They both benefit greatly from your servitude. And if you shove someone down a bottomless pit of debt, you're forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, pushing you into perfect servitude right where they want you. And of course, all the fiat currencies throughout history have reverted to their true value of zero, going back to 1024 AD in China. And of course, this will continue to happen over and over again, but there is a domino effect happening right now, and it depends on us whether it goes towards more collectivism, more of the same old stuff, nonstop, repeated over and over again for another 1,000 years, or or in this age of the internet for us to be educated enough to be able to take some kind of action, be able to utilize decentralized blockchain technology to our advantage to break free from central banks and be able to actually create our own system of competing currencies, free markets, not having these legal tender laws forcing us by fiat into this debt-based system that is going to continue to push people into poverty. So when this whole system comes down, they're desperate right now. Banks around the world, central banks around the world, governments around the world, they're desperate right now. They know this is coming. Eventually, it inevitably has to happen. They just don't know when. We don't know when. No one knows when. But it has to happen eventually. So at that point, you know, these governments are freaking out, and that we should take advantage of that and, I don't know, maybe protect our wealth, ensure our wealth, and look towards decentralized alternatives.
Well, here's an idea for the idiots that are running the country in San Marino. You know, take that IMF loan, buy gold, and give it to your people, and then dissolve. Game over. Yeah. Do that, because then, you know, you actually give the power back to the people that actually invented the government in the first place. Let them get the gift of self-governance and independence and individualism, and then you suddenly will maybe see something changing, because San Marino is a small enough country that they can actually, you know, implement some of these anarcho-capitalist rules that are out there. You know, free market, free enterprise, no government.
Voluntary governance, just not coercive government.
Oh, exactly. And if they do that, you know, they could be very powerful. This is a chance for the San Marino people, Josh, to actually make a change and not listen to the corrupt political elite that wants to take this IMF loan and then, of course, give, you know, the resources or whatever they have as any business or anything running in the country for nothing to the financial and political elite.
Yeah, I would disagree with one thing. I wouldn't take the IMF loan and turn it into gold. I wouldn't take the IMF loan because it's a loan in the end. I mean, they have to pay that back.
I don't care. Nobody cares about the IMF, Josh.
No, of course.
I would burn the contract and say, no, this doesn't exist anywhere. Where is it?
Yeah, well, and that's what they do anyway. So we will continue to look at the situation and focus on, you know, what's going on a regular basis. I think it's important that we keep an eye on this, because this is just exemplary of all the issues that are happening around the world, and to see them say, well, you know, they haven't recovered from the financial crisis in 2008. Well, no one has. It's just more clear with them. So anyways, of course, as always, self-sustainability, independence is the key. Decentralize everything, rule yourself, food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. Gold and silver as wealth insurance. This isn't investment advice. This is my opinion. And of course, look at things like cryptocurrencies that have sound fundamental value, but you have to go looking for that, because really you have to do your own due diligence. There's a lot of bad ones. There's a lot of good ones. And then, of course, also remember that if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. So why are you giving your money to these fraudulent banks that are, without a doubt, eventually going to collapse and possibly bail in the bank and, you know, get rid of the minor amount of depositor insurance left? I mean, folks, be more responsible than that. Be financially responsible, for responsibility is a hallmark of freedom itself, and it comes down to you, not anyone else fixing things for you. So anyway, thanks for going into this with us, John, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth.
Be the change.
Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized by YouTube as they bring in the ADL to flag all of our content as hate speech. Also check our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at Steemit at Josh Sigurdson, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency, Steem that is. So don't forget to check us out there and find us at Anarchapulco 2019. I know it's early, but this is such an exciting event coming up with Ron Paul, Judge Napolitano, David Icke, Larkin Rose, Jeff Berwick, you know, all the usual characters, and it's going to be amazing. So we hope to see you there. Make sure to check the link for Anarchapulco below and use promo code WHAM to save as much as 15% on your tickets. We hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.